What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I'm Ron again. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. Thank you so much for making this your first podcast for NBA coverage. Remember, you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think. You're on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you leave that 5-star review. You do that, we'll keep producing that content. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the state of the Denver Nuggets. Is it time to sell your Denver Nuggets stock? We're going to be diving right into that. We're also going to finish off the pod with a little bit of a fun draft. But before we get into Denver, Chris, it's been a while. How you doing, man?
Dude, it's good. This is as you would say, the doldrums. This is the dog days. This is the quiet part of the off season. If you are tuned into this episode right now, you are a sicko. Congratulations on being an NBA sicko. We're right here with you. What's today's major news that's getting us excited, right? Steph Curry changing his bio. Uh, we talked about off air. EJ Liddell this year, little looking for new homes. Who's going to pick up uh, I told you off air, he's my Cam Reddish. I'm still thinking this year Little has a career. I hope someone picks him up. But no, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about former NBA champion Denver Nuggets. I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to kind of see where they're at right now because I think we've had a lot of hypothetical discussions about how they could fix things, how they should have done things. But we're gonna get right into the reality and we're gonna see just how tough it is. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with Jokic and then their window?
I mean, yeah, I was ready to sell my Denver Nuggets stock after the title when they lost their two best role players, their two best bench players in Jeff Green and Bruce Brown. And then this year, after losing in the second round in game seven, they lost their best perimeter defender and their second best catch and shoot guy. I mean, I'm pretty confident and feeling good about selling my Denver Nuggets stock right now.
You don't have any left. I forgot about that. You sold so hard
I
right
sold hard.
after.
And I'm definitely whatever is left. I'm very much looking for buyers right now. But I mean, Jokic is that guy that like he guarantees you the playoffs. Arguably, you could make the argument he maybe guarantees you a first round win. But after that, you need the pieces around to be able to contribute to kind of keep on going and get to that next level in terms of being a championship contender. And Jokic is still the best player in the NBA. So I mean, I'm disappointed that the Nuggets seem to be too afraid to pay the extra bit of tax, take the chances on this title team. They're kind of going into that mold. It looks like slightly that it's like, okay, we have Jokic. Let's just he can do enough with very little. So we'll just ride his wave instead of putting him and the Nuggets in the best position to win it all.
Yeah, and dude, this is the crazy part, right? And super aside, have you ever watched the Disney movie Emperor's New Groove? Please tell me you've seen that.
Yeah,
Please tell me. So the Nuggets owner, I don't even know how to say his last name. Stanley Kronk. His last name is Kronk. I think it's Cronky, but it looks like
Cronky.
Kronk.
It's Cronky, yeah.
I just think about the pull the lever Kronk. Bro, he needs to pull the lever. He needs to like really invest in this team. And you know what should make Nuggets fans mad? And they probably already know this more intimately than I did because I just found that out this morning. So I kind of want to know like who's actually hamstringing them here. Is this like a lower lower income, relatively speaking, ownership group? Do they just not have the funds for this sort of thing? Like, bro, the ownership group led by Kroenke, they are the third wealthiest among NFL, NBA owners. The third wealthiest. That's insane. Like, and they're not gonna pay the tax on KCP. I mean, here's one thing. I think I just want to stick to Jokic right now, and we'll get into the things about KCP and the theory on replacing him and the theory around working around the roster here. But I think I mentioned Jokic in the window in the same breath because I think no one should sell their stock because Jokic is still the best player in the NBA. And he will continue to be the best player in the NBA. You can't tell me anyone else next year is obviously going to be a better player than Nikola Jokic. You cannot. You simply can't. And I think he's proven us time and time again that he's going to continue to ascend in the playoffs. He's going to continue to be at the level, and everyone needs to chill out a little bit because listen, it was a back and forth series between them and the Timberwolves. They did lose that series after having a 3-2 game lead, and they did choke a 20-point lead. But that just goes to show how close it was. Like, there are some problems that need to be addressed, yes, but in, like, the grand scheme of things, like, the Nuggets are still a championship contender. Are they a weaker one? Yes, they are. Is there worry? Yes, there is, but there's no fire sale. People need to chill. I think we're gonna talk about Jamal Murray in a little bit. I think people need to chill a little bit there too, because I think I was buying a little bit of the panic over the past couple of weeks, the Olympics panic, because he was bad. But I mean, listen, I think let's be real here. Is there any player better than Nikola Jokic? Is there any team, who can argue that they have a better shot because of him, because of their best player? I mean, nobody can. I mean, there's the Doncic. I mean, they're getting better for sure. T-Wolves, I mean, they're still up there, but I think you can't mention any of these championship contenders without talking about Jokic. They're still okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. Like I said, like Jokic is that polarizing. He is that much of a difference maker. It's just the question of how do they still have enough to get beyond the second round and the third round? Yeah, of course they can still beat the Lakers again next year. That'll be fine when we watch it. We'll see that series go down.
I don't know if they'll need to beat them in the playoffs. I don't know
Okay, yeah,
what, maybe
maybe
they'll
they'll
keep
have to beat the
making it.
Warriors then, someone like that. They'll have to beat one of those teams that are coming out of the play-in. There's probably still a pretty decent chance of that happening, but it's getting beyond that, which is where the worry comes out. And like Jokic can be great for as long as he wants to be great.
I
He's that
believe
good.
that, yeah.
He's that guy that's just like it's just that thing that there's gonna get to a point where you maybe just think he maybe just won't be bothered anymore, and he might go off and do stuff with his horses like that. That's the only worry you have about Jokic.
That's
He could be the best player in the league for the next 6-7 years if he wanted to. He's only 29. He could be the best player in the league up until he's like 35. The way that he plays, the IQ that he plays with, the lack of reliance on athleticism. If he's interested, he can do that. It's just a question of how high is his interest level? How much does he continue to stay in the best shape that he can? Because I think we noticed that it's not like overly obvious levels, but he's not quite as lean as he was maybe 2 years ago. But that's the only thing that can really stop Jokic, and I guess stop the Nuggets from still being considered in the top bracket of teams.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into just looking at what assets they have is that wild card of Jokic in what is it, in 2028 when he has his player option, which he'll definitely take. So it'd be the 2029 season. I mean, that would be insane even for him to turn down $62 million. It's not going to happen. But that leads teams to think, okay, is that 2030 pick going to be with a team that has no Jokic? That's a possibility. So how valuable is that first round pick? Because if you look across their roster, if you look at their trade, they don't have trade exceptions really to work with. They don't have really any burgeoning young talents that they're going to really sell anybody on. And they don't have picks next season. They only have a second round pick 2 seasons from now. They owe their first round pick to OKC season after next. Like they're really
Everyone else
tough.
have picked the OKC, right?
No, seriously, but like we're getting into the period of time where everyone's like, wait, we owe our pick to OKC, which God knows what they'll even do with it. But that's really all they got is that 2030 first round pick, 2031 first round pick. No picks in 2027, like I said. So if Jokic is, I mean, that's kind of the X factor where teams will think maybe if he leaves, is that first round pick worth it? So I don't know if that's just a major risk though.
And
Just getting into
that's
trade talks.
why you pay KCP.
Yeah,
That's
I
why you
know.
pay the guys you have when you don't have the assets to make any trades. That's why you do that.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that though, because we won't belabor that as well because it's been well documented. We've talked about it as well, and I think everybody knows that was just absolutely the wrong decision to make. No disrespect to Christian Braun either, who we'll talk about in a minute. But I mean, in that kind of philosophy though, is where you get mistakes like MPJ and Zeke Naji. Like MPJ's performance and his role is great on this team. I think there's no question about fit. There's no question about performance. Yes, he didn't have the most amazing playoff run. He did not. He underperformed.
Do not
He also
link. Do not lump KCP in with Zeke Naji. Come on, man.
no, I am.
Get
I know.
away from that.
No, I absolutely am because they extended Zeke Naji. He's 9 million annually for 3 years. He has a player option. He's a 2+1. That's what I'm saying is that the philosophy of a small market team. We need to keep our guys. We need to invest in our young players. We need to keep guys. But that didn't extend to KCP. They overextended that. And I think there's something to be said for, maybe you're holding on to a little bit too much. And that prevented them from making a easier financial decision by keeping KCP. Maybe they would have been under the second apron if they hadn't extended Zeke Naji, who no one was signing. I mean, that's a total dead contract.
Oh, yeah, that was a terrible call. Yeah.
And MPJ, no one was going to give him the max. I did not see any reports about anyone giving him the max. So maybe he would have walked. I don't think so. But all that said, I mean, they are asset poor. They are on the lower end of the roster, talent poor. And where do we start here? Do we talk about a theoretical KCP replacement? Do we talk about the Murray panic? Where do you want to start?
I mean, I guess just the area. I guess 'cause let's talk the young guys. Look at it this way.
Okay.
Last year they ranked 25th in the league in 3-pointers made. They ranked 30th in 3-pointers attempted. KCP shot 40% on 4.1 attempts per game. Are any of Braun, Strawther, or Watson going to be able to come in and do that? Is Braun going to be able to do that? I'm not so sure. I guess I guess he's the obvious one that's going to come in to replace KCP in the starting lineup. I'm assuming that that's the pick they're going to make, but it's very interesting that they've also kind of gone further away from being a shooting team, even though it's not like it held them back too much. But they've gone further away from that by getting rid of KCP and also bringing in Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Even in
Yeah.
this modern era of the NBA where the 3-point shot is very important, I think we're going to see that affect them just a little bit more this year.
Yeah, and we've probably mentioned this, and if you're a Nuggets fan listening to this right now, you know this better than anyone. Playing through the issues that you'll see with young players is going to be such a struggle for Mike Malone, who's notorious for not letting his players play through that and notorious for overplaying his vets and really not getting creative with his rotation like that. I mean, it's going to be tough to watch Julian Strawther have to huck up 4 or 5 threes a game, but they need someone to do that. And he's not, we haven't seen him be a volume 3-point shooter, and that's going to have to just appear like, because he's going to have to slot in and play 22, 25 minutes a game. Like ideally, if we're basically assuming that some things need to be true in order for them to be that true contender, I think one of them is Julian Strawther behind Christian Braun is a shooting 4.5, 5 threes a game, making a decent clip at them. Maybe it doesn't even have to be elite, but he just needs to shoot. And same thing with Christian Braun. Christian Braun at volume, like he needs to increase his volume there. And we've seen it with Jokic. I mean, well, let's just talk about Christian Braun real quick. I mean, he's a guy, if you just look at his numbers with Jokic, so if we're theorizing what he's going to look like as a starter, I mean, the Nuggets are plus 17 when Braun shares the floor with Jokic. And this guy shot over 70% from 2 when he's sharing the floor with Jokic, shooting 39% from 3 when he's playing with Jokic. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see Christian Braun ascend into a very good, borderline elite starting player. Like maybe he's not going to fulfill that KCP role perfectly, but I think he's going to come pretty darn close. I do believe in his defense, and I believe in his athleticism. I think that that's going to translate really well and add a different dimension than what you got from KCP. You're going to get a lot more cutting from there, and maybe that kind of takes away from the shooting. But I think that Jokic will figure that part out. I don't think I think we've overreacted a little bit, and it's going to correct a little bit. We've overreacted to what that replacement's going to look like because I mean, Christian Braun's got next, and I think that he'll fill that role decently. The question is behind him.
Yeah, I guess like yeah, but yeah, it's just that element that you kind of still think of Braun being kind of the backup to another starter, and it's just that the Nuggets are effectively banking on one of these young guys really becoming a high level impact player. Like that's what they're going to need in order to remain a top three seed and remain a legitimate title contender, especially in the West, which is just so tough and only feels like it's getting better. It's just going to be yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how big of an impact he has. Does he go through any sort of extended slumps? Does
Yeah.
something like that come about? There's going to be some growing pains trying to fill that hole left by KCP. But again, like you said, outside of that, when all their guys are healthy, you could still say they still have the best 4-man lineup in the NBA. If you wanted to, last year was the best 5-man lineup, and then now you could say they still have the best 4-man lineup in the NBA.
Yeah.
There's still the potential for that. Is yeah, like you said, like Braun has the potential, but it's just going to be interesting to see how big the growing pains are there.
Yeah, I think the growing pains will definitely come from the shooting because I think early on, especially as he's playing more minutes, they're really going to leave him open. I mean, his shot still needs work. He still needs and that percentage is kind of coming off of a lot of open shots. Let's be real. I mean, KCP is going to be having way more gravity, taking a lot more difficult shots, more of a movement shooter than Christian Braun is right now. That's a development that needs to happen. Is can he develop his game and instead of just shooting 3 feet open from the corners, 4 feet open from the wings, can he really start to like come off the screens, take some shots there? That's not something we've seen, but I have to. That's the hope, right? The hope is that shooting is there, and that's when we started to get into questions. Is we can't necessarily replace KCP, but is there replacing him by committee? Does Julian Strawther shoot more? Do you have an in-season trade that you can make to kind of add into this and get another shooter in here? Um, what about Peyton Watson? If we're talking about young guys, what's your confidence level on how he'll progress next season?
I feel like he's the one that I think is like the golden ticket for them. I still feel like he might be the
Ooh,
one with the
golden
most.
ticket.
Maybe that's a slight exaggeration. He still has a long way to go to get to the level, but I feel like he could end up being the guy that makes the biggest impact of those three players. I think I believe in his.
Oh, Siri's talking to me.
I think I believe in him as the most talented of that trio. But I also think he could still end up playing the fewest amount of minutes. He's going to have to show more in less time to really kind of nail down that spot and have that big impact.
Yeah. The difficulty is going to be compounded with the presence of Russell Westbrook,
Yeah.
who again, as a non-shooter, he can't share the floor with Watson as it currently is. Like Watson would have to take a serious leap in just shooting from the corner in order for that to make sense. Because I think Watson's role, kind of in a somewhat of a Bruce Brownish role, which is that's still a hole that they're missing. He's not. No one's filled that in a way that was so meaningful to their championship run. Um, but I think he has a more potential on ball that's going to be taken away from Russell Westbrook.
Mhm.
So that's going to be a big question mark. Is how does Russell Westbrook make his teammates better? How does he make the second unit better? And how does he make the young guys better? Because I think he can, in terms of like actual like energy and the vibe and the competitiveness. I think that's hugely important, and that's something we could speak on with Russ in terms of leading these young guys and leading this locker room in general. Because just look at the series against the T Wolves. I don't think there was a huge like fiery presence that was constantly there to push them to continue to compete. And not to say that's why they lost, but you kind of get that intensity from Anthony Edwards. Maybe sometimes he's quiet, and that sometimes they lose that energy, and you need they kind of needed that Pat Bev kind of energy from them maybe in the Mavs series, but someone like Russell Westbrook to continue to push a guy like Jamal Murray, who gets a little quiet when he's not doing well. He's not always that you don't have that fierce intensity from Jamal Murray, especially when he's going through a shooting slump. I mean, you're always going to get it from Russell Westbrook. So maybe that is something that matters. But in terms of on the floor, I do have concerns about how Peyton Watson is going to specifically adjust to that presence on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be an area that maybe hurts him from really stepping forward this year. Definitely the presence of Russell Westbrook on Westbrook. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly. Obviously, it's going to start great. It always starts great with Russ. How quickly does it go to hell? I mean, we saw that with the Clippers. With the Clippers, he was great to start and they had a big impact. And then all of a sudden, it was like, okay, we cannot play this guy in the playoffs. Okay, this guy cannot make a shot for us. Okay, we need to get rid of this guy as soon as possible. How quickly does that occur in Denver? Does it happen by the playoffs in 2025, or does he manage to get through a good year of being a positive contributor? I mean, apparently the word on the street is that Jokic wanted him, so
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it goes.
I mean, best case scenario, like the second unit needs an identity. They need another guy to really push the pace, and they have young guys like Peyton Watson. And, if Peyton Watson can just shoot a little bit, he can play fast. Those two guys can play fast together. And maybe he gets Zeke, not like maybe he and Zeke Naji, they form a formidable two-man game. And seriously, I like Zeke Naji's shown flashes and he just disappeared last year. I still thought he was on, approaching like he'd be like a Nas Reed type of player. Like a Nas Reed type of player for this team would be huge, and they need someone on this roster to pop.
That's
And
not
Zeke Naji
underappreciated
is
Nas Reed right
disappeared.
there.
What?
That's not underappreciated Nas Reed by saying something like that.
No, I mean that's respect to the potential I previously felt about Najee. He's
Okay.
a guy that, has 4 to 5 tweener size. He can switch a little bit. He can shoot the ball. He's got some good footwork. He's got skill, but just has not been physical enough and has not shown enough defensively consistently to be in that rotation from Malone. If he's somebody who could, develop alongside a Russell Westbrook, if Peyton Watson can develop a game alongside Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, like if these young guys can develop a chemistry with Russell Westbrook and kind of embrace maybe his like intensity, maybe that's that like second unit type of identity that they develop, and that's like their bench mob is Russell Westbrook and the young guys. And I mean that would be kind of a cool evolution for Russell Westbrook too, for him to continue to develop his later years. Like, what do we remember him by? Instead of remembering him as the former selfish MVP who just stat pads, we remember him by, the impacts he made on these young guys and this team and maybe getting them back into contention. Like that's an outcome that's within the realm of reality. It's within touch, it's within reach. Like it can happen.
Yeah. No. I definitely agree on that. And hopefully it does for Russ. I think Russ gets a bit of a bad rep. I think that trade to the Lakers did him as much damage as it did to the Lakers. In all seriousness, it was
Yeah.
both
It
sides
was
took a big
nobody's
hit
fault.
there.
It was management's fault. That it was LeBron's fault. And I mean, there's got to be something to be said for the fact that LeBron really wanting him on the team, Jokic really wanting him on this team. Like he's a guy that garners a lot of respect across the league, and he's a guy who garners a lot of respect for his level of competition. But yeah, I hope that this is maybe his final stop, and this is going to be a positive final spot.
Yeah, I guess that's what the Nuggets are hoping for too. Anything more on the young guys, or will we get into the Jamal Murray of the situation?
I guess on the negative end is they really have been banking on their other picks also working out, just having like a constant rotation of next man up mentality, kind of like the Grizzlies were doing, but also kind of like the Grizzlies have done is running out of that. You're not going to get lucky every single time because Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, currently just not NBA players. Hunter Tyson, we saw last summer league, some flashes, thinking maybe this guy is going to be a MPJ replacement, like with his length and his shooting, and that's not panned out yet. And for those two guys, neither of them to show any promise really, especially in the summer league, that's huge disappointment. That's huge disappointment, not just for their value, but who's gonna who's their next influx of talent going to be. So that's tough. Just thinking about their roster as a whole. Um, but I think now we should probably jump into Murray. We should get into this because this is
Yeah.
the
I
major
mean,
panic mode.
let's open up with like obviously this the talk of extending. First of all, they have to pay Aaron Gordon next year. Are they going to pay
Yeah.
Aaron Gordon? We won't jump into that because that's still a while away. But that's going to be very interesting
But
to see what they do
okay,
there.
that has to come first because can we both quickly agree that they don't come close to a championship without Aaron Gordon?
Oh, 100%.
That they're not this team like this. The flash of Nuggets championship level team came when they first traded for Gordon a few years ago for Murray got hurt towards ACL. That was the first instance where we're like, oh, this is a team that can win a championship. Like that changed everything. Honestly, getting Aaron Gordon, and people don't talk about it enough. Like getting Aaron Gordon into this roster is what changed the dynamic to being a fun, like competitive team to like a balanced roster that can win a championship. 100%. So that's just not negotiable. Like there's no replacement for him right now.
Oh yeah, no, they if they don't pay him, then they're officially giving up, and I guess they're really just going, yep, Jokic, it's all you, baby. But yeah, they need to pay. I know Stan Kroenke, he's been investing a lot of money in Arsenal. There's another team that he owns in the Premier League and soccer. He's been investing a lot of money there. I don't know. That's maybe why he's cheaping out on the Nuggets a little bit. That could be possible there. I'm
Honestly.
not 100% sure. And then Murray, he is currently eligible for a 4-year, $208 million extension. I I mean, if they really believe they have no choice but to pay it, I'd pay it. But I think they should be looking at getting some reduced terms on that deal.
Yeah, there's no way they can pay that. They can't pay that. I mean, it's it's really funny, because like we in the current state of the contract situation in the NBA, like for example, like KCP, we're like, oh my God, you have to pay that. You need to pay him. You need to keep your guys. You need to keep investing in Jokic. And then when it comes to a situation like this, it's like, oh, you can't pay that. It's too much. But I mean, really, like you need to find value in contracts, and that on one hand, I'm saying like we can't panic about Murray, and there's reasons for that. I mean, he just had his best season actually. Like a lot of people are talking about how bad his season was. Like he had his highest scoring season. He had his highest efficiency season from three, shot over 40%. Not a lot of players doing that at that clip, and he also improved his assist numbers and assist to turnover ratio. He's better there. So overall, like had a good regular season. Slow start, but good regular season. Bad playoffs by his standards, but
Except
on
when he
average
plays
is
in the
still
Lakers.
yes. But I mean, but also like he's one of the better performers in the playoffs over the last 5-6 years. Like he's been good. So is it time to panic and say we need to look for a replacement? Would be smart to think about, what he is as an asset, but I don't think it's time to like we need to move off. But 50 million, like, and it's not even the number. It's not nothing about the number, but it's about how hamstrung you are. That's it. Like this roster is completely, and we've seen how they operate on the margins, and it's not been great. That would be tough. I guess another question to ask is who in the league would max him?
I mean, there's probably a lot of teams that still would. I mean,
I don't think so.
uh, it's tough when you see a guy that can bring his performance level like he's shown in the playoffs, and there's still a few teams out there looking for point guards. So I mean, I think if they could find a way, I think Murray should want to stay in Denver. I think Denver should obviously want to keep Murray, but if they could figure out a cut price deal, maybe like 4 years, 160, something like that. If that was something that he'd be willing to take into account, then it'd be a much fairer deal. If they could slice that's nearly 50 million, slicing off the what he's eligible for. I know, obviously, I never
Would you
gonna.
take a $50 million pay cut?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying. Well, if I'm still making 150, then 160, I think I'd think about it, and I'm putting the team in a better position to win. Like, look at what Jalen Brunson just did. Obviously, he's going to be eligible for another big contract, just like Jamal Murray will be eligible for another big contract after after this one. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's
Jalen Brunson's
crazy.
setting a good example. Yeah.
Damn right. I think it wouldn't be crazy. The only reason I think Murray wouldn't do it is because maybe he doesn't have the belief in his overall health that either. And it's not just like the matter of fact, maybe he knows that maybe he's not the been the healthiest. I mean, look at the last few years. I mean, 59 games, 48 games, missed the whole season, 65 games, 59 games. Like he's not been the most healthy
Yeah.
player you can be. Like that's a big mark against him. Last year, the playoffs, he was hurt going in. He's still out on the floor, but his numbers are way off. And then the Olympics, my God, his numbers are absolutely horrific. 6 points per game, 41% from the field, 14% from three. And is he going to be healthy then coming into the new season, or is he going to still be hurt? I mean, the last thing I heard was that he was back already in the gym working out, and like it feels like he maybe needed that bit of rest, maybe needs to recover from an injury. But I guess he's maybe just so mad at himself for the struggle that he wants to just get back and be the best that he can be. But I'm thinking I think he needs to play 70 games this year if the Nuggets are going to be a top three seed in the West.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He needs to be healthy in order for them to be a top three, even a top five, honestly, with how good the West continues to get. But I guess just back to the contract and thinking about, his health factoring into that, it does make it difficult for me to think about teams that would, max him. So I mean the Nuggets, they can't let him walk for nothing after next year, obviously. They need to keep him around. Um, would a team like Toronto push for him, get him? I mean, not after this Olympic, not
Yeah,
after
maybe not after
this
this.
summer. Would a team like the Spurs be like, "Hey, let's grab our point guard for Wemby"? But there's not a lot of teams with space that I would imagine go for a guy like this, where I think it feels like the consensus across the league is that he is an elite player, but he is a 2B, 2A, 2B type player. Like he is not a lead player on a championship team. He's the second player next to Jokic, who's like far and away the best player in the entire world. So that's not really saying a lot. Um, so it's tough to imagine kind of that situation. This is why the it's so nuanced, but the state of the CBA, it's not broke. I mean, it's really created parity in the league. So overall, it's a good thing, but it creates these weird situations where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you need to have Murray on this team for them to be good. But you also are going to be really stuck with a guy who's, I don't think, getting any better. I don't think it's time. Like I said, we're not going to panic, but um, yeah, tough to think about that too. A lot of incoming problems for this management team, and I think part of the reason why they didn't want to, pay KCP is because they didn't want to be too far into the tax
Yeah,
with
I mean,
that
but
coming
I guess
extension.
like not paying KCP kind of just makes you think they're absolutely going to pay Murray and Gordon. Like that's kind of the feeling that you would get. You don't pay one guy to be able to pay two guys like that. That would kind of make sense. I think Gordon is obviously the guy they 100% need to pay. I'm not sure what sort of contract he's eligible for, but I think he's definitely worth whatever contract that is. I don't think he'll be in the 200 million. I think he'll be somewhere around, what would he be, around 150, somewhere around that mark. I'm not 100% sure. You didn't see where what his extension is going to be next year, no?
No, I mean right now he's pretty team friendly contract, but next
Yeah.
season, I'm not sure.
But yeah, like so, like I think they're going to pay him. I think they probably will end up paying Murray, but I think both sides have to be realistic, and I think both sides could come to an agreement. Maybe not on the massive 50 million that I threw out there, but I think there's definitely some middle ground that they can meet on, especially with Murray being, I think Murray is 26. He signed another 4 year deal. He'd be like 31 getting his next deal. Like that's still, he could still be in a very good player at that stage. He could still get another big contract then.
Yeah, if we were in panic mode, were there any trades that you thought of?
There was nothing that really made sense. I mean, I was looking at the idea of possibly trading either MPJ or Jamal Murray to get a more like balanced shooting defensive players, but there was nothing that made enough sense that I could actually talk myself into. How about you?
No, truly. Yeah, it's when you look at Murray, I think a lot of people were over the past month like freaking out about the Olympics, then looking back in playoffs and thinking about, how he's declining. But again, career year in the regular season. And try to find someone as productive as him. It's tough. It's tough. He's in terms of what he does, facilitating the offense, and he is part of that two-man game between him and Jokic that make them the most deadly duo in the league when they're going. And that's not something that you find easily anywhere.
And he's
Try to
pretty
find an
clutch too.
ascending.
He's a
Yeah,
pretty clutch scorer as well, which is hugely important. That's something you definitely don't find everywhere.
yeah. I think the best bet is, running it back and keeping things the way they are. And, you have the greatest leveler and Jokic. Jokic is always going to raise everyone's potential. Jokic is going to be the best way to make sure people continue to, get better. But you can't really find a trade. I tried really hard. I tried to talk myself into a few, but I think the only person who makes sense, the only player who makes sense is MPJ. You mentioned it. He's a guy that his contract doesn't make sense anymore. It's not a terrible contract. Let's just go through one fake trade that I've seen that makes no sense, but might make a little sense. Let's just talk it out. And I think this is kind of the litmus test for the situation that they're in general. But guys, Zach LaVine for Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke not you're expecting the Bulls, first of all, to give Zach LaVine and a pick for a bad contract. Maybe not as bad, but a bad contract in an MPJ and a really bad contract in Zeke Naji. And then also get a pick. Number one, that's not happening. The pick's not happening. But let's try to sell you on that.
Who knows
What's
with the
that team look
Bulls?
like?
Bulls are pretty bad negotiators.
Oh, let's not. I mean, they did want to draft MPJ a while ago. At least the fan base did. But Levine and Murray, I mean, in terms of a team philosophy sense, what would that look like in terms of offense? Like get in a guy like Levine who can just inject a lot more athleticism, a lot more perimeter scoring punch. I mean, a better shooter than KCP, more willing 3-point shooter. I mean, a guy that really, that's my dream role for Levine. If he can get into a team where his primary role is, coming off the screens, shooting threes, tagging closeouts, and, cutting a little bit. Like if he's just taking like a Klay Thompson role and then playing in the open court as well with Jokic's full court passes and stuff like that is the ideal tertiary championship level player that I think Levine can be. Does that make sense in a roster like that? Does that get you excited to the point where like, all right, this is absolutely the best off in the league. You just increase your 3-point rate by a lot. You fix that problem. Maybe you have a new problem with defense for sure. But how would you feel about that?
I mean, MPJ is a high volume 3-point shooter, so like that's not. I don't know if I'd call it fixing that problem. They'll be losing MPJ then, and like they'll obviously be increasing the shooting from KCP, but then they're losing the shooting from MPJ, and also the rebounding from MPJ. He's become a really really good rebounder, and then like the defense. I mean, I'm not like MPJ is not the greatest defender in the world, but I mean, who do you have guarding the top guards in the Western Conference
Christian Braun and Peyton Watson, baby.
off the bench? They'd be off the bench, no? I guess. Yeah.
You'd have to start. You'd have to
You
start
have to
Braun.
start one of them, yeah. I
You'd have
guess
to
you should
start
start
Braun.
Peyton.
You'd be a little bit small.
Yeah.
You make it work, but
A
see,
lot
it's hard
small.
to.
Rebounding
You can't
struggles.
talk yourself into it, right?
No, I can't talk myself into that. I like you said, I like that fit for Levine, but no, I couldn't talk myself into that now.
Yeah, you can talk yourself into Levine to literally any other team because that's the situation he's in, but it's not a great sell. So that's tough. What about a move to get Cam Johnson? Does that make a little bit more sense? Does that give you a little bit more perimeter defense that you are missing from KCP? He's not the same level defender, but he's still a very good perimeter defender, much better than MPJ. Maybe not the same rebounder, but I mean, I think that importance pales in comparison to what you're losing from KCP. does that make any sense? Would you give? But the question there also lies: are you willing to give up a future first? Because that's what it will take.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth like MPJ and the future first. That was we're talking for Cam Johnson. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. I think I like the idea of Cam Johnson playing in Denver, no doubt. Like I think adding that little bit of more defensive cover and arguably I think he could shoot the same clip as Michael Porter Jr. I think Cam Johnson
Yeah,
is really
numbers are
great,
almost identical in
really
terms of
great 3-point
volume
shooter.
and
Yeah, so
percentage. Yeah,
yeah, it's just that pick is what the Nets would only do it to get that pick, and
100%,
I'm just not sure it's worth it.
100%. Um, and again, it's funny because like we always like are oscillating between these two sides where it's like invest in Jokic, invest in the team, and it's like, well, these deals that are on the table don't make sense. So I think the Nuggets are getting a lot of flack for it. Hey, you're not investing in Jokic, you're not making these deals. Well, hey, like look at the state of their assets and look at what's around the league that makes sense for what they need. And there's not a lot. There's not a lot. They're capped out. They have the guys that make sense, and there aren't a ton of upgrades that make sense around them. And yes, they made a mistake with KCP, but maybe it's because they just truly could not, survive keeping KCP and extending both Gordon and Murray in the future. So I mean, there's just not. I think all that to say there wasn't any way for them to go around this. I don't know.
Hey, look at the Celtics. They're extending everybody, and they're still going. So let's not say it can't be done because
They're extending and then selling immediately.
it can be done. Yeah, it's still it's a it can be done. I will say like the best hope for the Nuggets, arguably in a trade, is hoping that one or more of the young guys really pop off to start next season. Maybe their trade value goes a bit and maybe attach a first to one of the young guys and find a way to maybe add like a Cam Johnson or someone like that. That's going to be kind of the most probably I wouldn't say realistic, but the most ideal situation for the Nuggets, I guess.
Yeah. I I do have faith. Just going back in it, I have faith in Peyton Watson. I think that he's going to have a great year. I have faith that I have middling faith on Julian Strawther and everyone else. I have big faith in Christian Braun. That's one that I think people are downselling. He won't be the same 3-point shooter, but he'll fill in that role well enough, a lot better than I think people are giving him credit for. And I think people need to chill about Murray. I think overall tells us there wasn't a lot to be done. Yes, they're cheap, but I think for the most part things will be okay. And you guys were 20 points away from potentially being, champions again. Because who knows how they play against the Celtics? Who knows how that looks?
Win.
Essentially, I think they're a really tough matchup for the Mavs. That could have been enough. So I think if you rewrite history and you just look at what might have happened, then none of these conversations take place. Obviously, that goes for a lot of things, but Nuggets are closer than people think.
So are you saying keep your stock or buy your stock?
Keep your stock.
Keep your
Keep
stock.
your
Okay.
stock. Keep your stock. I think just like in the real when you're looking at stocks, you don't panic sell. You never panic sell. And this is a major panic sell. There's no major changes. There's some peripheral changes. There's a little bit of worry, but if anything, I'm gonna buy stock because Jokic is still on this team and his running mate still on this team. The guy who they added in that made this team the true contender that it is still on this team. They have first round picks in the future. If a crazy deal comes up, they have salary with MPJ. They have a very, very valuable future first if there's a rebuilding team that really wants to cash in on Jokic going back to Serbia after a couple years. And there's still a chance for something like that to happen.
Things can still change. I'm still gonna lean towards.
You've
Well,
been selling.
I've been
I know.
selling big, but maybe I'll keep a small little bit of stock. Won't sell off completely, but I definitely don't have the overall optimism that I think you do.
Russell Westbrook's gonna fix it all, man. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
The man is gonna make it happen. Let's go, Russ. I am excited to see what sort of impact he does have. I will definitely say that though.
Yeah. So
So now we finish off with a little bit of
Uh,
fun.
fun for you. I'm not
Fun for
feeling good
me.
about
Yeah,
this.
you're not feeling confident at all. I mean, this is just something fun to do. We are gonna draft the most underrated starting fives that we can. So, Chris, I'm going to give you the first pick, the most
Oh,
underrated team you can draft. Go.
all right, let's jump into it. So when I looked at underrated, first of all, let's get some things straight. When I think about underrated, I first and foremost am trying to find a guy who's never been to an All-Star game. Although I suspect you're gonna be really riding the margins of that definition and be picking some All-Stars. So let's start out strong. And my first pick, I'm gonna go with uh David West
Oh, okay.
at my forward position, prime David West.
Nice.
Um, I need a front court presence. I'm gonna bring back the old school. I'm gonna have a guy who's gonna score all sorts of, turnaround jumpers, kill you in the paint. Let's go with it. 6'9", David West.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, you're definitely going in a completely different direction to me. I'm going strong with my first pick at point guard. Maybe I'm being a little bit loose here. I'm going to take Rajon Rondo.
That's bro. See, I knew you were gonna do some stuff like that.
I think he's
He's
underrated.
what
I
is he?
think
A
he gets forgotten
four-time
about.
All-Star? He's
He
a
gets
four-time
forgotten
All-Star.
about when you think about the Boston Celtics. Who talks about Rajon Rondo? You talk about Ray Allen, you talk about Kevin Garnett, you talk about Paul Pierce. This
Maybe I'm from
dude,
Boston, so it's
this
crazy,
dude
but
was an elite play setter. And surprisingly, during that run, 08 to 2012, he had 22 games in the playoffs, scoring over 20 points per game. Injuries stopped him from being considered probably maybe even a top 10 point guard of all time. Definitely one of the top point guards of his era. The injuries prevented him from that. But I would call him underrated because I think the impact that he had on that Celtics team definitely gets forgotten about.
no, for sure, for sure. All right, so underrated, four-time All-Star, All NBA third team, two-time All NBA, All Defense first team, two-time All Defense second team, three-time NBA assist leader,
I said you didn't have to go
NBA
through that
steals
radius.
leader.
I tried to tell you,
Oh,
man.
yeah, two-time NBA champion. All right, very underrated. All right, so my pick is up next. Are we doing a snake draft? We definitely can't be doing that. All right, let me pick another All-Star then, since I knew you were gonna do this. I had them up my sleeve. I want to fill out my front court. Um, and since we're picking All-Stars now, I won't be going Lamar Odom, won't be going Rudy Gay, won't be going Serge Ibaka. I will be going Andre Kirilenko,
Okay.
AK-47, defensive ace, three-point shooter. Can you imagine what Kirilenko would have looked like in modern NBA? He would have been really good. He'd have been
True.
really good. I mean, he was already good for his time, but how much more teams switch now? How much more teams really use versatile bigs to their max? Like he's a guy that, as a wing, could play 2, 3, 4. Defensively, defend pretty much every position with how small the NBA is now. You could defend 1 through 5 even. I could throw him a little bit at the 5 if I wanted to defensively, depending on who you're playing. So I'm gonna take that. David West, Andre Kirilenko, front court stacked.
Nice. I'm gonna go for my center position. A real underrated player. Steven Adams.
Okay, thank you. There we go.
Legitimate
That's
underrated piece
legit.
right there. This guy is just a guy who consistently contributes to winning teams. Shout out Pelicans. Find a way to go get this guy.
Yeah, I like that. Be crushing me on every screen. Rajon and Steven Adams. That's gonna be some old school pick and roll right there. Um, All right, let me think here. I'm gonna go point guard. This is gonna be one of my favorite underrated players. This is more of a personal pick rather than maybe a talent pick, but I think Nate would disagree because Nate Robinson himself,
Ooh,
that is my point guard. That is a guy who's gonna play up to any competition. He's gonna think he's the best player on the floor because you've seen it in the playoffs. This guy has had some crazy moments. I'm going Nate Robinson. Let's go.
nice, nice. Closing out my backcourt, I'm gonna be picking a guy we've discussed a lot on this podcast. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP. At my shooting
Interesting.
guard. Dude's a winner, 3-and-D player. A nice little pairing next to Rondo, a guy who can play similar levels of defense but also shoot the ball. I like it.
Sticking on shooting, I'm gonna go with J.R. Smith. Nate Robinson and J.R. Smith. I want
I had
that.
J.R. Smith on my list. I like that. I like
I
that.
had that in my I needed the highlight reel between Nate, JR, and then you mix in the Andre Kirilenko. I'm gonna be putting down some crazy dunks on your team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I thought about J.R. Smith, then I was like, I mean, maybe reaching a little bit? Is he actually maybe more correct than I do? But I love that J.R. Smith pick for sure. My power forward, I'm gonna go a bit old school here. I'm gonna pick Horace Grant,
Horace Grant.
a winner, strong scorer, strong rebounder, part of the original Bulls title winning team. Also was a part of one of the Lakers title winning teams during their three-peat. Dude's just strong throughout, and I guess kind of gets forgotten about a little bit in terms of the Bulls' success. He doesn't really get mentioned when you just think Bulls, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, those guys. Horace Grant was a really big contributor there too.
Okay, that's gonna be tough for my boy David West.
True.
That's gonna be tough. I need a big man. So, dude, our teams are very. This is very early 2000s esque. Like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Roy Hibbert.
Oh, okay.
Roy Hibbert is a guy, maybe not underrated, and this is kind of the fringes of where I was saying underrated, but this guy, two-time All-Star and Defensive Player of the Year. He's a guy that really should have been, if he was in the wrong time, if he came into the league in the 90s, came to the league in the early 2000s, I mean, he's a guy that was dominating and just disappeared off the face of the planet. The way the league shifted so quickly and he couldn't keep up with it. That's a guy that could have been multi-time All-Star if he was drafted in the right period.
Yeah, for sure. And then closing out my team, I got this might be a little bit of a reach on my part, but on my small forward, I got Alex English.
That's definitely a reach.
I
How many
think
All-Stars?
he had a lot of All-Stars. The fact that his game never translated to the playoffs, the fact that
Yeah.
he was playing in the era of the Lakers and Celtics, that's where I think underrated comes into it. Between 81 and 88, he averaged 27.7 points per game on 52% shooting. He averaged more points per game than the greatest scorer of that era, Larry Bird, during that period. That guy was a hooper that doesn't get talked about enough because he didn't do it enough in the playoffs.
8 All-Stars. All
What about
NBA second team 3 times.
second
NBA
team?
playoffs 9 consecutive times. This man,
Yeah.
sir, you with my last pick, I'm gonna take LeBron James,
Okay, that's just not the same thing.
brother.
We have different
Well,
ideas of underrated, I guess. You went
I
further on the
started.
scale. I maybe went a little bit closer to being really good than underrated. You went kind of closer to being bad than underrated. That's a
Bro,
kind of
I was looking at Dominique Wilkins, being like, that's not really under. He made all these All-Star, and you're like Alex English, the guy that Kobe Bryant looked up to, the guy that MJ looked up to.
talking about the standing in the league. How often do you hear Alex English mentioned when you talk about the greatest scorers of all time? Never.
Well, you have to talk to the real hoopers. DeMar DeRozan talks about him a lot. That archetype of your Kobe like MJ like play seems like they get a lot of inspiration from Alex English. So cool to see you pick him. I thought about it, but then looks properly rated to me.
Yeah,
To
okay,
be
that's
fair.
that's fair enough. Well, I don't know. I don't know who we can call the winner there. I think that there's
Oh,
some.
I mean, I lost. I mean, this is unfair that there were no rules applied here. My team just probably lost by 30. Rajon Rondo got 20 assists. Alex English scored 50 points. Nate Robinson got dunked on like 7 times.
Yes. Well, that's not surprised that I'm the winner. That's just the way things go here. But I know a good way to make you feel even more annoyed. I have something prepared for you that I haven't had in a while. I have a little quiz for you.
Bro, if you have a quick, okay, let's get
Don't
this
worry,
over
it's
with.
not a historical quiz. It's an active players quiz, so that might help you just a little bit.
Yeah, it's just gonna make me feel bad when I don't know. Yeah,
I want you to name the 8 active NBA players that have 200 or more 30-point games in their career.
200 or more 30-point games, active players. Okay, how many players is it?
8 players.
8 players. All right, let's just go easy first. LeBron James,
Uh-huh.
Steph
Number
Curry,
1. Yep. Number 4.
James Harden, absolutely.
Yep. Number 3.
Um, let's think. Of score, I'm gonna say he was hurt for a bit. Paul George,
No.
really? Okay. Well, longevity. I mean, Kevin Durant, definitely.
Yes. Number 2.
Russell Westbrook, definitely.
Yes. Number 7. 3
Um,
to go.
did I already say Steph?
You did.
Okay. Honestly, I feel like has Embiid already gotten there? Joel Embiid? No. Okay.
Close. Not there.
Um, over 300, you said? Oh, like
Over
I'm in
over
my head.
200. Over
Over
200.
200 games. I'm gonna go with. I gotta go. DeMar. DeMar has a lot.
No, not quite. Not quite.
I feel like he'd be sneaky on that list. Um, oh man, active players, more than 230-point games. I've already named the obvious ones. There's gonna be Devin Booker.
Two of these guys. No, not Devin Booker. Two of these guys currently play together. That's a big hint.
Uh, not Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis is on this list. Yes,
He
he was
is
not.
on
He
that
was not
list.
the guy I was talking about. But Anthony Davis is number 8, 206. Yep.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think there are periods of Pelicans history with Anthony Davis that goes forgotten, where he was just like okay, this guy's gonna be MVP within the next few years type level. Ooh, okay. So
Come on, think
this
about
is
it.
this is
The
a wild
last two
one.
guys played together.
Brad Beal.
No, the two guys that you haven't said yet play on the same team together.
Oh, right now. Okay. Oh, the two guys that I have not even mentioned yet. Who is the dynamic duo that has over 200? This is gonna be the most obvious thing ever. This is why I hate this game. Oh man. Um, it's not Joe. It's not him. Eastern or Western Conference?
East.
In the East. In the top of the East. Oh my goodness. Giannis and Dame.
Bingo. Number
Giannis
5
and
and
Dame.
number 6. Dame has one fewer 30-point game than Giannis Antetokounmpo. But yes, that
That's
rounds out
crazy.
the list. You needed a hint, but I'll give it to you. You got the
I
W
got.
there.
Listen, I think the craziest one of that is Anthony Davis
I was
because
surprised you got him. Yeah,
you
I thought you would
forgot the
forget him.
ascent. You forgot the ascent. We should probably chronicle that. So since this is the dead point, it'd be cool to kind of look back on the what ifs. And you remember him in that season where it was him and they got DeMarcus Cousins. They were both doing some crazy stuff together.
I
That
did
was
those Pelicans days. Those were fun. Those were fun times. They should be getting back to those fun times if they can just figure out their roster with Zion and with Trey Murphy and the likes. They should be getting back to those fun days if they can just figure out a way to make their roster make sense.
who else came close?
Who else came close? George is up there. DeRozan was up there. I think Embiid is up there. There was a few guys. It was like I was kind of like, would I make it a bit longer and say 150 or more? Because then you get like the likes of DeRozan, you get Paul George, you get
Yeah,
Embiid, you get a few guys like that. But I was like, nah, maybe that's just a little bit long. But yeah, there's guys that could end up there by the end of the season, I guess.
it's what's crazy is that Michael Jordan still has the most at 562.
Yeah,
562, and LeBron's been playing for how many more years than him?
Luca, Luca's at
Luca's
182
gonna
right now.
smash that. Luca's
Luca's at
gonna smash
182
that
right now. He could definitely take that. Yeah.
easily. Wow. All right, good list. I got it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Take the
come up with
dub.
an annoying for you next time.
Yeah, good. We each get a W to finish out the pod. That's always good fun. That's what we try to do here. We try to have fun at the dead of the off season. Got to have a little bit of fun after discussing those terrible Nuggets. But that's gonna do it for today's episode. Thank you all for sticking with us. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. So the verdict is keep your Denver Nuggets stock and maybe even buy a little bit more. Unless you're me and then you're a bit more hesitant. But for now, thank you all so much. We'll be back again next week to talk more NBA basketball. Hopefully something a bit more fun happens. We're not remaining in the doldrums of the off season. But again, thanks so much for listening. Remember, we're everywhere on social media at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.